Happy Casual Wine Geek Wednesday. Sing along with it.
Wednesday. I didn't
sing along.
Manage to spill a thing.
We got 2 bottles open and neither spilled.
You know, it's a superpower if I ever saw one.
Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, Brandon.
Happy Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Hi, friends.
Hi, friends.
That Raven Beauty on my left is Amanda.
Ah, yes. Hi.
Hi.
This is my other friend, my right hand, Brandon.
Your right hand gay. Can I be your gay Friday? Like instead of gal Friday. Your gay
Sure.
Friday.
You can be whatever you want to be.
Home napping. All the time. And
or hanging out with everybody like we are right now.
You know,
with the podcast.
You're here, we're here, there's wine. We're going to throw some history at you, some fun facts, maybe have a little kibitz beforehand.
Oh, yeah, we got a few things.
Oh, there's a list, friends.
We have an agenda.
Because we finally got our shit together. I mean, as well as the two of us could.
Here's a couple of bottles of wine and a microphone.
Good luck. That's why we're sequestered in a room and
the doors are
our
shut
other
and
halves
locked.
are elsewhere.
Go talk to somebody else.
Can I put a thing in your
Yes, please.
vessel, your glass?
May I put a thing in your vessel?
I wish you would.
Would?
Would.
Wouldn't?
No, would. As in the affirmative. Yes, please.
What are we talking about today, Brandon?
Well, so we're kind of winding our way
I see what you did
around. And I'm going to put this here so that we know we're drinking the same thing out of the same thing. Okay, so we're sort of Southern Hemisphere living where it's currently winter. The company that I work for, we actually just recently started getting our first 2018 wines.
Oh, that seems
because their
so
harvest
weird.
is flopped, right? Because it's the Southern Hemisphere. So it's kind of interesting to be already talking about, you know, the 2018 harvest just for the fact that
it's just 2018.
It's just now 2018. You know, we're halfway done. Christmas in July and all that. Although I suppose it's August now, so... Which threw me off because I was talking to one of the coffee girls where I get coffee in the morning, and we were talking about something, and I mentioned, well, I mean, it's the middle of summer and they're already playing back to school stuff. They're like, yeah, because school starts in like 3 weeks. So what are you talking about? Oh shit, it's August.
Yeah. I'm having a hard time with this.
Where did the summer go?
Right?
It
went
feels like
so
it just
fast.
started.
Yeah.
And now it's cloud. I mean, thank God it's cloudy again. I'm not mad about it.
No. Long sleeves. First time in a long time.
I'm wearing a hoodie.
I love it.
It feels like the natural
We're in our
Seattle uniform. I was getting dressed to come over here after I got off work. I ran home to do some stuff, and I was changing out of work clothes, and I was like, oh, it's cold outside.
Yep.
Grab my red hoodie, get my black t-shirt.
I've seen so many pictures of us. It's hilarious. So if you look through our Instagram, you're always wearing the same thing, and I'm always wearing the same thing.
I swear to God, I own more clothes than this black t-shirt and red hoodie. It's
right. I'm always wearing my blue hoodie, and you're always wearing your red hoodie. It's hilarious.
Well, I stole it from my husband, and I just won't give it back. Love you, babe. But I needed this hoodie in my life.
Cheers. Happy Wednesday.
Wednesday.
So we decided to stick with the Southern Hemisphere. Last week we did New Zealand.
Sorry, there was a whole tangent
okay.
that I went off on. Yeah, so we did New Zealand, and now we're kind of moving over into Australia. And while I was doing research, I was like, we've already talked about Syrah and Shiraz and what it does and how it lives in Australia, and so
the over-extracted fruity bullshit.
I mean, some of it's really good.
Yeah,
it's not all terrible, Brandon.
And we've talked about barefoot wine, how it comes over in bladders.
It's not barefoot, dear. Yellowtail.
Yeah. Same.
I mean...
Same.
Yeah.
How do you say...
Soma?
Soma in Thai and la même chose in French.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What is that... I almost said legitimately translate to. It's not right.
I think it's like the same thing. La même chose. I'm probably saying it totally wrong, but...
3 words?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't speak French.
Yeah, I don't either, apparently. I just know that.
And I can do it in ASL. I don't think I can do it in Spanish. My first instinct would be más o menos, but that's like more or less. That's not like same.
Same.
I mean, it has
Same
a little
thing.
bit of a different context, but idioms and similes, and they're all,
Same
you
thing.
know, a thing.
Yeah. So yellowtail, how it comes over in the bladders, and then it's bottled in the States.
Yep. Hey, man, got to save that margin.
Yeah. On shipping. But before we get right into it, we have like an interesting talking point this week.
Just the one?
A couple of interesting talking points.
Okay, I was like, I thought there were at least two.
Probably. Well, we always talk about Patreon. If you love us, support us on Patreon. Go to our website, casualwinegeeks.com.
Yeah, maybe we'll start doing stuff live or videos or something.
I don't know. Something.
We'll figure it out.
It's August. We're like, we're going to do something fun over the summer. And then now apparently summer is over. We're going to talk about, I just found out about this thing and hard sparkling water.
Oh, yeah. Boozy seltzers.
Boozy seltzers. You've tried some.
Quite a few, actually, because I don't drink soda, but I really like fizz. So I tend to just drink soda water. I'm team
like a bubble water.
Yeah, I like a fizzy water. I'm definitely team Pamplemousse in the La Croix life. Don't correct me, because I will say it the way Adina of AbFab says it. It's a La Croix, sweetie. It's a La Croix.
And that's the grapefruit flavor?
Yeah. I mean, grapefruit everything is my jam. It's so good. I love it because it's kind of sweet, but more bitter. I like that more bitter.
Yeah.
Not unlike myself.
You turned me on to the Campari Spritz with a grapefruit splash.
Yeah.
Or a grapefruit mimosa with a Campari
with a
splash.
Campari splash. It's delicious. I mean, it's all the things I love and none of the things I hate.
Bubbles and bitter and...
Again, not unlike myself. So hard fizzy water is actually kind of interesting. So I was actually boating with a girlfriend this weekend, and her mister is tight with a brewery here in Seattle, and they have just started doing hard seltzers. Have you seen these?
No.
These ones?
I have not.
So it's interesting. So Two Beers Brewing down in, that's off of, not Airport Way. What the fuck's that street? Marginal. Awesome beer. They also do Seattle. They're also responsible for Seattle cider, which is also tasty. And they're now doing
like a hard seltzer.
So it's Soundcraft Seltzer Company is the name of it, which is actually pretty interesting. So far they've got cucumber, grapefruit, which I had, and it was delicious, and a rosé, which is like a blackberry raspberry mix. It was there's a really good article about it actually on the Washington Beer Blog, which is pretty cool because it gives you kind of a breakdown of like what exactly is hard seltzer.
Yeah, I don't even know what it is.
Or I'm about to lay down some knowledge on you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Grab your drink, put your feet up. Here's a story. Because it's interesting to me, having worked in the beer world and also living in wine land, where like the process of making this thing is just as important as the thing you're making.
Right.
Yeah. Because the process is what the process is and has been historically for a long time.
Ever. Yeah.
So hard seltzer is not beer, but is sort of beer. So when
it's made similarly.
Okay. Some are grain based and some aren't. All of them essentially get the alcohol from sugar that's been fermented, whether it be fruit, whether it be grain like barley, or general sugar like sugar cane gets used often. Okay. I mean, if you think about, rum, sugar cane based. Yeah. So hard seltzer is not just fizzy water that has booze in it, like wine or something distilled. So it's actually brewed and fermented like beer and is then flavored later kind of also like beer.
It doesn't have the malted.
No. So
grains.
If you so let's break it down. So you start out by making a liquid that you can ferment.
Yep.
You're pressing grapes.
Yep.
In the beer world, that's called the wort, W-O-R-T. And usually seltzer is going to be made by using sugar instead of barley. So you ferment it into essentially a beer-like beverage. You're not distilling, you're fermenting. Right? Distilling is the act of making spirits. Boo. I mean, Halloween is only like 52 days away, let's be honest.
It's the best holiday of the year.
Actually, I don't know if it's 52, but I'm just making up a number. Okay, so you ferment it. It's going to be super strong, probably around 15%. It then gets filtered and filtered and filtered and clarified and clarified and clarified, essentially to where it looks like water. It's going to be clear. So you take that essentially 15% boozy water, and it doesn't really taste like anything. And so you dilute it with regular still water, not hard water, until you get down to about 5% ABV. And that's when you add your flavor. So you'll add like your cucumber, you'll add your blueberry, you'll add your grapefruit, you'll add your, I don't know what, pick a flavor. So it's kind of like cider in that sense sometimes, because sometimes you don't ferment the fruit or flavoring with your stuff. You add that essence or flavor later. So in seltzer, you're not going to be doing fermented blackberries.
It'll be blackberry flavor.
Right. You're not fermenting blackberries to make a blackberry flavored seltzer water. You're adding that flavor in later. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I've never seen it on the shelf, but now I'm going to go down and try it. 2 beers, you said, right? But
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of different places I'm sure that are making it. It's this new, I ran across the article that hard sparkling water is like the new fad, because it doesn't have the gluten and it doesn't have the calories and it doesn't have all the things that all the young kids these days are worried about.
Right. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. I think it's I like hard seltzers or hard fizzy waters because they're lower alcohol. They're usually about 5%. They're
I would imagine that they'd be easy to drink, easy to transport, just kind of an easy,
right,
more tasty beverage than beer.
Yeah, and it's a nice change from cider, which I don't always love, to be honest with you.
It can run a little sweet, I think. Ciders.
Yeah, and even when you're getting something that's labeled dry, it's sometimes cider just to me has this like fake taste about it. Yeah, I like it because it's a nice change from beer and wine, but at the same time, sometimes it doesn't taste like a natural beverage. Like to me, wine and beer taste like natural beverages because they're natural beverages, right? They're not I don't want to say artificially flavored, but artificially flavored. Now, that is not the case in some wines.
That's true.
That cheap $3 shit that's on the bottom shelf.
Don't ever buy that. There's nothing natural about it.
Shaking my finger in the air right now.
Well, this kind of rolls in, before we get it to Australia, this hard sparkling water kind of rolls into the next kind of interesting thing we ran across this week was the droughts have been killing off all the barley crops. So if you can't get barley to make your beer, hard cider might be a good alternative if you have a brewery, I would imagine, right?
Yes.
Right? If barley prices, if droughts are taking out half of the barley crops and barley prices go up by twice, you're not going to be able to get it like you used to.
Yeah, I mean,
with pricing and,
I don't know where a vast amount of the barley that beer users make beer comes from. It was a terrible run-on sentence. As I was saying it, I was like, that's not right. Oh God, wrong thing. So I don't know, have we seen a big up in, prices of wine from California because stuff burned?
I haven't seen much.
Not much.
Yeah.
Not enough for me to be like, oh shit, the market's shifting.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's I don't want to say scare tactics, but
hype.
We need a thing to talk about. I mean, it is important to talk about it because as, temperatures change greatly. I was actually listening to an interesting article about our apple growers in Michigan. I think it was Michigan. And how they're talking about because it's starting to get warmer earlier in the year, that also fucks up the insects that pollinate things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how now, because it's so late longer, but they still have to wait because of how the market is to harvest apples to get them to consumers. Apples are getting sunburned because they're getting too hot and it's not cooling down enough at night. What do we call that? Diurnal shift. So it's an interesting thing to see. Like, well, it's not just affecting wine. You know, you're starting to see things being planted in England for making sparkling because it's starting to get warm enough for the grapes there.
Yep. Climate change is real, man.
You know, it's temperatures are changing, and it's starting to get interesting to see. Well, you're actually seeing places like Canada start to produce wine of substance because it's warm. It's warm enough for the grapes to ripen the way they should ripen. Not to say that Canada never produced something of substance. That's not what I'm saying. Don't come after me.
But more it's warmer. The growing season is getting longer. It's just climate change is real.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I would like to amend a statement I said earlier.
Today?
Yes.
Okay.
So the seltzer people that I was talking about,
2 beers,
are actually using fermented fruit juice.
Oh, they are.
They're
with
not
their
adding
flavor.
Yeah, they're not adding flavors later.
Oh, so it's in the fermentation process. They're adding fruit juice.
I didn't read far enough down the article. I would like to apologize.
Oh, I'm sure it's
owning
fine.
my mistakes. Hey, the internet is forever, man.
The internet is forever.
And the internet's forever. That's all I'll say.
It's fluid fact day.
I'm sure there's a naked photo of me somewhere if you really wanted to find it. I don't recommend it, but it's there.
It's in the dark web with everything else. So we're going to the land down under today.
Yeah, so Australia is an interesting place, I think.
The toilet water goes backwards.
Well, I mean, isn't that everywhere south of the equator?
Yeah, but we didn't talk about that on any of the other episodes.
I don't think it's really relevant to the content that we're publishing, but
well,
I mean, I've never seen it, so I can't speak to it. I've never been south of the equator.
Oh, you haven't?
Puerto Rico's north of the equator.
That's right.
It's as far south as I've been.
Wow. That's awesome.
Although
I feel like you should get an award when you go south of the equator and, or north of the equator. It's pretty far.
Whenever we're on a drive and we cross the 45th parallel, I'm always like, we're halfway between. It's just a thing. Because you cross it when you go to southern Idaho or you go like past Portland, right?
Yep. It's just south of Salem.
We cross it whenever we go down to Medford.
Yep, you do.
Medford. Have you been there?
Yes, I spent some time there, yes.
Armpit of a town. Armpit.
Nice people, though. We love Medford. Nice people live there.
Some girls thought that one of my cousins was Bradley Cooper.
Really?
Yeah, we were there for a funeral, and he and I were like running to go get coffee for folks. And
you and your cousin, not you and Bradley Cooper.
No, my cousin. Not Bradley Cooper. I don't know him in person. He looks like Bradley Cooper quite a bit, actually. Same sort of mane of hair and face and whatnot. And these girls stopped us on the street, and they were like, Bradley Cooper. And he was like, no. Like, you could have charged them like $5 an autograph, man. We would have had coffee paid for. Always thinking ahead, like the entrepreneur I am.
Yeah, well, and that's on them if they can't get their celebrities right. Australia.
Oh, your wine is way better than my wine.
Really?
Yeah.
I have a really good story about my wine.
Lay it on me.
You want it right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So my wine today is from Penley Estate. It is a Cabernet Sauvignon. And this, I think, is the 2016. And it's their Phoenix. So they have they have a bunch of different lines, but this whole line of mythological beings.
The label's beautiful.
Yeah, the labels are amazing. So Penley Estate is an Australian wine, comes from Australia. It has a female winemaker. Her name is Kate Goodman. And this particular wine spent 12 months in French oak and then 6 months in stainless before bottling. So interesting. Okay. So we're going to get to like kind of the facts about Penley Estate. And then I have a really cool story.
Yes.
So in the 40s, I think, the mom and the dad met, fell in love, had babies, decided to plant grapes as their babies grew, and they made wine. And their first wine that they submitted to a competition in 1989, they won a gold for the Phoenix Cab, which is what we're having in 1989. And you'd think And in 1995, their winery was built in Australia. So this, nice family created this wine company, but they had a history in the wine industry. Interesting. Their great, great, great plus grandmother was Mary Penfold.
Oh, that's a name that's very familiar.
Penfolds is a very famous winemaker in Australia, and she was one of the outstanding pioneer woman in southern Australia, and she drove the establishment of McGill Estate in 1844, which is important to the Penfolds family. And then another relative of theirs, Gladys Penfold Highland, ran Penfolds as the chairman of the board from 1948 to 1961. So this family has a winemaking history in southern Australia that is like royalty.
Yeah. I mean, it's like
the Penfolds are like, that's the family in Australia that is very known for wine, right?
Do you remember when we were in Italy and we saw like the Penfolds bin?
Yes, but it's Penfolds is very, very significant for the Australian wine history in general. And then this family, the kids created Penley Estate, and Kate Goodman is their winemaker now. But anyway, great grandma Penfold said, "Grow up and be fascinating," and so that's their like tagline is "Grow up and be fascinating." And so the two daughters from the family, they're older now, but they kind of run it. They run Penley Estate, and then Ms. Goodman makes their wine there, and that's what we're having today.
It's delicious. It's really good.
It's really good. And do you want to take a guess at how much I spent on this wine?
I'm going to say 24.
$13.99.
No.
Yes, I did. $13.99.
Color me shocked and odd.
It's delicious, isn't it? Yeah. It's really, I wasn't expecting this when I bought it. I was just looking for something interesting,
It's got an interesting, like, dusty, dried rose, floral nose to it, but it's delicious. I really dig it.
Yeah,
and I'm not usually
really
a cab drinker, but it's got a little bit of that, like...
It's very dry, but not drying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And it's like sort of lip and teeth tannin, but sort of nicely balanced by oak tannin. So you can tell the difference between tannins on where your mouth dries out.
Yep.
Do you remember this from Sensory?
I do.
And so it's got a nice balance of like fruit tannin to oak tannin. It's lovely.
Yeah, $13.99.
Where did you get this?
Costco.
Really?
Yeah, Costco.
I always just don't think the wine there is going to be worth the thought of purchasing.
So Costco has I'm a huge fan of Costco wine, right? Because you can get great stuff for an affordable price, but they have their regular bins, and then they have kind of like the one-off bins. And that's what and sometimes there's only 3 or 4 or 5 bottles left from whatever shipment, and they kind of throw it all in the same bin to,
Can I air a grievance real quick?
Sure. I dig through the bins, just like you dig through the bins.
Well, I mean, that's the best stuff is on the bottom where no one's looking.
Yeah. What's your grievance?
I don't like that Costco doesn't do a case discount.
Yeah, it bothers me.
And the first time I asked, the guy who was working looked at me like I had 3 heads. Like, we already passed the discount on to you. I'm like, no, you don't, because you forced me to pay to shop here. So I'm not buying that line.
Well, I got this for $13.99. I looked it up on their website, and it's $20 on the website.
Okay.
Plus shipping.
So my 24 assessment was
pretty close.
Like, this doesn't taste like a second to lower tier shelf wine.
Mm-mm.
This is delicious.
This is really good. From basically Penfold's family, right?
Well, it's interesting that you'll start there with her being such a established part of Australian wine history. Some of the oldest vines actually in Australia date back to the 1850s.
Yep.
So
McGill Estate was 1844.
Yeah, and this is just the vines themselves. Vines actually started showing up in Australia in actually 1788. So
Really?
you're seeing vines come over from Brazil, and the Cape of Good Hope. However, a lot of the heat and humidity was a problem with the first sets of plantings in around Sydney, which was, the
home
base.
Yeah.
Because you had, heat and humidity add to phylloxera, or not phylloxera. What's the thing that makes stickies? Sweet wine, sweet. Botrytis.
I was like, it sounds like what? I don't know. I'm not sure.
2 syllables. First word. So you had a lot of things started to get planted, but they didn't really do well until James Busby comes along, and he's into the viticulture situation. And we talked about him with New Zealand, I think.
Yep, we did. Mm-hmm.
So around 1825 to 1831, he went to Europe. He gets a bunch of different varietals, like 650. Varietals.
Wow.
Because back then, like there are things that aren't around now, and things have died off as Cabernet and Chardonnay sort of take over the fucking world like the colonizing bastards that they are. Anyway, so he comes back to Australia. Only 362 varietals actually survive and ended up getting planted in the botanical gardens in Sydney.
Oh, wow, really?
Mm-hmm.
So you can go see them even today.
So there's a duplicate collection that was planted at his Hunter Valley property, and cuttings from that ended up making it into parts of New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia. A lot of Australia's oldest vines can actually trace their history back to the original Busby collection.
Wow.
So it's a really cool snapshot of, here's this industry that's, thousands of years old. Mm-hmm. But is only a couple of 100 years old, and you can trace it all back to like one set of things.
So I'm going to build on what you just said, because I read this thing.
Solid as a rock.
I read this thing.
Ooh.
And it said that not customs, but the, what is it called?
Immigration.
Yeah. Immigration. Let's say that. When people were coming to Australia, everything was kind of put in quarantine. So phylloxera never made it to Australia because everything was quarantined before it was released into. So the louse from Europe, when everything was getting decimated by phylloxera, it never made it to Australia, even when all the vines were coming in because of this quarantine thing that they had going on. Did you read about that?
Well, it's interesting you should say that. So you have the Wyndham Estate, which gets established in 1828. Mm-hmm. Hunter Valley, very famous area.
Super famous, yeah.
By 1850, you have commercial vineyards that have essentially established as some of the most productive around. Hunter Valley, north of Sydney, to the Barossa Valley in South Australia, which I feel like is the other really famous Australian area. You've got some maritime areas. You've definitely got a lot of people who are utilizing the terroir around them to craft solid beverages.
Yeah.
Right. Well, like, because your environment dictates what you can and can't grow.
Unique environment down there. Yeah.
Now, by 1854, you had the first wine exported to the UK that was formally recorded as 1,384 gallons or 6,291 liters. Wow. Phylloxera affected some states in the 1870s, and there are a few active pockets remain, but many areas in Australia are phylloxera free.
Got it.
And have very old ungrafted vines. So it did happen in some spots, but it was not widespread.
And it didn't spread through the rest of all the places that it could.
Right. So you don't have to have, like in Washington, we have a lot of ungrafted stuff because it doesn't grow. It doesn't do well here because it's too hot and too cold, but also it has to do with the soil, like because of we have really volcanic rich soil here. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that, here you have spots in, did you hear that?
Yeah, it was my stomach.
Okay. I was like, my tummy was rumbling earlier and it might have been me.
I'm really sorry.
No, it's totally fine.
I was just thinking about what we're going to have for dinner because these wines are so good.
Yes. So it's just interesting to me that you still have pockets of oh, hey, these vines are, 160 something years old.
That's so amazing.
My math was terrible just then. Did you see
okay.
Did you see the abacus working?
I smelled the smoke.
Hey, it's been a long day.
Yeah, it's been a long week, but we're halfway there. We made it.
So now, today, Australia actually produces only 4% of the world's wines.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Only 4%.
Mm-hmm. But it is the fourth largest exporter by volume behind Italy, France, and Spain.
Wow.
Now, in the year ended December 2010, Australia exported 781 million liters of wine. And vine-bearing area was just below 160,000 hectares, with over 2,000 producers using 1.6 million tons of grapes for wine production. 1.6 million tons.
And a ton is 2,000 pounds.
Yeah.
So take it, double it, and you have your pounds. 3 million pounds.
Yeah, of grapes.
That is amazing. That's amazing. It's so much. My mind can't even wrap. Like, it's hard for me to imagine.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
So you've got places growing Riesling, Chardonnay, Semillon, Muscat, Shiraz, Grenache, Cab, Pinot. Also significant, Merlot, Mourvèdre, Sauv Blanc, Pinot Gris, Marsanne, which I think is weird.
I saw that too.
You're seeing a little bit more of an uptick in Mediterranean varietals like Vermentino, Barbera, Sangiovese, Fiano, Nero d'Avola, and Touriga Nacional.
Nero d'Avola the popularity is growing in Australia because it grows so well. The popularity is rising.
I mean, hey, get a thing that does well that's not fucking Shiraz or goddamn Cabernet
or Yellowtail.
Well, I just, it's
there's more to wine in Australia than just Yellowtail and Penfolds. That, like, obviously, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, pardon me. I think it's interesting that you have really old vines. Mm-hmm. You've got a really interesting established history that's pretty current.
Oh yeah, 150 years. That's like no time at all.
It's all traceable because of, botanical gardens and going to get cuttings and
Australia is pretty isolated. I mean, they have oceans all around them, so it is pretty traceable to be able to see what came in and when and where, because there's only so many places on the island that you can come. Like,
I mean, it's a subcontinent. It's not
an island. It's a subcontinent.
Well, I mean, technically it is an island, but isn't everything.
True.
Right. If you want to get, anyway, we're not splitting hairs here. Can you guess on average how much wine Australians consume annually in the form of liters, please?
Liters. Okay. So
annually
and liters. I'm going to take my knowledge of Australians, who I met a lot of when I was in Bali, and they drink a lot and they are a lot of fun. Do we know how many liters per American?
That was not part of my research today, no.
So a liter of wine would be what, like almost a bottle, right?
Yeah, because a standard wine bottle is 750 milliliters.
Okay, so I'm going to say a bottle a day. On average, 30 times 750 milliliters a month. That's too much. Let's say half that. 15 times 12 times 750 is... No, that's too much.
That's too much. 29.6 liters of wine annually per person.
30, let's say 30 liters of
30
wine.
liters, yeah.
So 30 liters of wine. So it'd be like 40 bottles of wine a year.
Unless they're saying annually, not to mean yearly, but like monthly. That also feels high to me.
Yeah, that feels
We'll
really
get back
high.
to you on that.
I could see that. 30,
I'm just reading the research that
liters,
I pull off the goddamn internet.
On average, 30 liters a year. That would be like a bottle of wine a week.
Oh, who are those people?
That's not much at all.
That's not us. That's less than a bottle a week, because there's 52 weeks in a year, so that's like a bottle every week and a half.
Huh. How many?
Australia, I'm disappointed. to feel like if that's an actual fact. It's a fluid fact.
It's a fluid fact.
Let's say. It's a fluid fact. I can tell you that about 2 million bottles of wine leave Australia every single day to go to 111 international markets.
111 international markets.
60% of their entire wine production.
Wow.
2 million bottles of wine leave Australia every day.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. Where are you gonna put all that wine? Where's it going?
In my belly.
In my belly.
I was trying to look and see on average what Americans drink per year, but I can't find something easy in liters. It's all stupid. Google is stupid today.
Well, there are 65 wine regions in Australia.
Like AVAs.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah. All really unique with their own geography, topography, soil, climate. And then within those regions, there are 100 different varietals that are planted. However, Chardonnay and Shiraz tend to be the big go-tos.
And Australian Chardonnay tends to be a little bit more oaky than dry, right?
I think so.
Like in general, like a California Chardonnay is a little bit more oaky.
I can't say that I've had a lot of Australian Chardonnay, to be honest.
Oh, really?
I couldn't really find much today when I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off trying to find wine today, which is how I ended up with this lovely $8.99 bottle of Australian Cab.
Tell me about your Australian Cab because it looks quite interesting.
Oh, we'll get there because there's a whole...
Right. There's a whole to do?
There's a whole to do. Let's see. What other fun tidbits did I have? Ooh, the first, or rather Australia's current oldest vineyard was planted in 1843.
Wow.
Langmeal's Freedom Vineyard is in the Barossa Valley.
And Barossa Valley is very, very famous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The most expensive bottle of Australian wine ever sold in the world. You want to play this game?
Yeah, I bet it was Penfolds.
Yes.
And I bet it was over $100,000.
Yes.
Less than 150.
No.
More than 150.
More than 150.
160.
Between and then some.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
$168,000 in 2012.
$168,000 for one bottle.
One bottle of the Penfolds 2004 Kalimna Block 42 Cab Sauv.
Oh my God.
It is the most expensive Australian wine ever sold in the world.
2004?
Yep.
That's not that long ago.
Nope. What was I doing in 2004? I might have been in Puerto Rico.
Maybe. I think we played this game before in 2002 and you were in Puerto Rico.
No, it wouldn't have been 2002 because I was 19 in 2002.
Such a little puppy.
I was living in Bellingham wishing... Well, and it doesn't matter.
So in 2004, they made this wine that eventually sold for $168,000 for one bottle.
Yeah. In 2012 was when it sold. So, 7 years ago. 6 years ago. What?
I can't.
Bananas.
What? At an auction, you think?
I believe...
It just boggles my mind why somebody would pay that much money for one bottle of wine. Like, what is this? Now I want to know the significance of this wine, or if it was just some sort of...
I'm guessing an auction. It doesn't tell me specifically. But it was Penfolds.
Yeah. And Penfolds is...
you can get Penfolds that's, approachable and affordable and not their crazy, crazy high-end stuff.
That are...
And it's good wine. Like, there's a reason that it's what it is because it's delicious.
It's made by virgin unicorn hands.
I thought... Wait, unicorns don't have hands.
I know, that's the whole point. It doesn't make any sense. Why would one bottle be $168,000?
Because wine is a goddamn...
Because it's a commodity.
Fucking...
currency?
Yes, that's the word.
Yeah. Not me. I couldn't do it. Even if I had fuck you money, I still don't think I could do it.
I just don't... I want wine that I can lay down for a minute because I know it's going to get better with time, but I also want things that I can buy and drink right now.
That's why we're Casual Wine Geeks, because we are so interested and curious about wine and we want to know things about it, but it's casual, not pretentious.
I mean, don't be a pretentious wine fuck.
Don't be a pretentious wine fuck.
I just don't. It's to me, it's just one of those like.
Be discerning and curious, but
when we definitely want to get something to hold on to for a hot minute, we'll get a larger format, right? Like we'll get a Magnum or a double Magnum and stick it in the back of the cellar. You know, we usually get a couple a year is kind of our splurgy fun thing. Oh, we like this. Let's get a big format of it. And we'll hold on to it longer because you can age them longer because
they're in a Magnum
of surface area and science.
And you're not tempted, you know, at the end of a bad day to come home and open up a Magnum just because.
Hey, sorry you got home, but I'm halfway through this Magnum, which means I've had 2 bottles of wine.
Yeah, right.
Drunk. No, we want to open up a bunch of our bigger things for
events.
Like events or anniversaries or celebrations, or we have a giant 6-liter Italian thing we're going to open up.
The Chianti we talked about. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're good. We moved the date.
Oh, good. I'm not good, but good. Because
we were going to wait until our 15-year wedding anniversary, and both of us were like, let's just, how about 5?
Yeah.
So, and it was a 2010, which means it's already 8 years old. So in 3 years, it'll be 11. It'll be 11 years old.
I think that's fine. It'll be great. It'll be fun.
Anyway, giant bottle of wine. Huge. Okay, so can we talk labeling laws for a second? Because this is something that after we were talking about stuff in Chile with Carmenere a couple weeks ago, like
the labeling laws are so interesting,
fascinating.
Yeah. Because there's no global labeling law. Every country has its own system.
Well, and if you're going to send something to another country, you have to follow their laws.
Right. So if anything's going into France, it's got to have caloric.
Which is why you
content.
don't see a lot of American wine in the European market.
Yeah.
Because
it's a food product over there.
Mm-hmm. As well it should be. Well, okay, so Australia, not as strict as France in terms of how bananas they can get with their labeling. The Australian Wine and Brandy Corporation is actually the one that does the enforcement of the laws. Mm-hmm. So when using a state, zone, region, or sub-region on your label, 85% of the wine has to come from the place you're stating.
So that's the same. It's very similar to Chile, which if it was going overseas, it needed to be 85.
Here's a hint that I was told when I was taking the
labeling law class.
No. It was a certification test to be a certifying, not the French wine scholar, but the other one.
The Wine Society?
Yeah. Anyway, generally around the world, if you're asked a labeling percentage question, 85% is almost always the answer.
85% of the time.
Well, so if a grape varietal is stated on the label, 85% of that wine must consist of that grape. So because this says Cabernet, it has to have at least 85%. Now, if it's going to be 100%, it has to say 100.
Oh, really?
But you're gonna look at this and say, I bet 15% of that is God knows what the fuck.
Probably Syrah.
Likely.
Yeah.
Very likely.
Mm-hmm. And these do have, it's not a typical 100% cab flavor that I would normally expect.
And it was $8.99. Like, it was not expensive, which is fine. We all know delicious. That there's, approachable, inexpensive things. Now, here's an interesting thing I found out. If a vintage is stated on the label, 85% of the wine must come from that vintage.
Which is the same as Chile.
But not the United States.
Yeah, that's right.
100%, unless you're going to say non-vintage.
Yep. Has to come from that year.
It has to come from that year. So this could be 15% leftover from 3 years ago. Right. So they might be holding stuff back to blend a house flavor profile.
Yeah.
Which, right. I mean, that's how you hook your folks in some places in terms of marketing. Like, I know this is always going to taste the same. It's consistent.
It's the same with like sourdough or anything that you have a starter with, right? It's sort of the same. You hold a little bit back so that the next year you have the same yeast and the same flavor profile and the same, because that makes a huge difference when doing science things.
Well, here's where it gets a little interesting. When you're blending grapes, if 2 or 3 grapes make up at least 85% of the wine, each of the grapes that make up 20% or more of the wine must be stated. If 4 or 5 grape varietals are used and each makes up at least 5% of the wine, each of those grapes must be stated. Additionally, the grapes must be stated in the order of importance, such as Cab Merlot, when the wine contains more Cab than Merlot.
So they have pretty strict labeling laws.
I found a website that's got all the labeling laws for every country.
And those will be that link will be posted on our Patreon page.
Yeah, I just copied and pasted the Australia one, but the link to the article is on the bottom because I believe in citing my sources.
Yeah, and it's all available on Patreon.
I'm poor. I cannot afford a lawsuit.
And last year, oh God, we've been doing this for almost a year. Last year, when California was having all their wildfires, we were looking
right around now.
Yeah, we were looking up all this interesting information about.
Can I have more of that, please?
Yeah, about wildfires, and Australia has done a ton of research on wildfires and smoke taint, and because they deal with it on a regular.
Right.
So it could be also why they hold some wine back, because they might need. They might need it. They might,
Oh, that makes sense, and I'm not slamming them for it. I just think it's interesting that you're allowed there legally to not use all the grapes in a vintage stated on the bottle. Coming from somewhere and studying places like Italy and France very heavily in school and also for work, where, that vintage is that vintage, and it's important because the differential of those vintages makes up whether you can say a thing is a thing.
Yeah. I think in general Europe's just a little bit more strict about labeling, because it's a food product. So
yeah, I don't know. I just thought
super interesting.
Labeling laws to me are just super fascinating.
Always read the fucking labels. Always read the labels.
Well, it can tell you so much.
Yeah, and if you have kind of a general idea, of these labeling laws, it's going to tell you way more about the wine than, the things that are included as well as the things that are left out are going to tell you a lot about the wine if you look at the label.
For sure.
How
For sure. Yeah, I don't know. Australia, I was trying to get outside of just like, the thing that they're famous for, which is Shiraz. I tried to look up some stuff about sparkling wine in Australia. I wasn't interested in any of the stuff that...
I looked at that too. I was like, oh, it'd be fun to get an Australia sparkling.
Yeah, right? Like...
Yeah, something interesting, but I didn't see anything.
Nothing was interesting to you?
No.
Okay, me neither. I'm not saying there's not delicious sparkling wine from Australia. It's just that it's not what gets exported here.
Yeah, we just don't have access to it, which, a lot of questions that we get on email or through social media is all about, well, why didn't you talk about this? Or there's so much more than... That is absolutely true. Please don't take what we say as like the end all be all. We just don't have access to it.
Yeah, it's hard when you're in an already saturated market. And this is where like my marketing and sales background comes into play, which is kind of why I picked this wine, which I want to talk about quite a bit actually, which I think is just fascinating. But it's like when you're in California, you don't see Washington wine because they already have wine there.
Yeah, right. That's true.
You don't see Italian wine in France because they already have wine there.
Yeah. Right.
And enough of it to be diverse enough to fill up a wine list. Right now, you go places, I feel like Australia or New Zealand, where it's far away.
Yep.
It's expensive to get stuff here to Seattle from there. I mean, Seattle's not low on, like, we're high up on the globe. It takes a hot minute to get here. I mean, distance wise. I'm not talking about like...
Yeah, we're at the top. We're at the top part.
Well, that's where Santa lives. It's not that cold. We can't see Russia from our house.
No.
We see West Seattle from our house.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think it's one of those like, oh, I really wish that we could get some more stuff that's not Molly Duker, which is still delicious, but like there's other things to drink. And it also makes me think about like, do other places think that Washington only does the chateau? Because that's all that gets exported.
Pretty much, yeah.
Or shipped or whatever. Like, do people in Missouri think that that's the only thing that happens here? which makes me really wish that we could just get more shit from other places.
Yeah.
Because the stuff you do get is mass produced and carried by one of like the 4 large beverage corporations in the world. Because there's just like 4 of them.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, well, I think there's more than 4, but like, you know, Constellation owns Kim Crawford, and I think they're based in Canada. And so they've got like massive international ability to get their products places. But then you've got spots that are, you know, smaller and delightful, like what you brought.
Like Penley, yeah.
You know, and so it's hard.
It's hard. It's hard if you're a smaller winemaker and you want to have a bigger audience. And that's, you know, this is kind of where we rely on our listeners of like, oh, you guys are doing an episode on this and this is what you need to do. Like we've gotten a couple of emails about going to Berlin for the big wine festival, including the gentleman that talked to us on the train.
On the train to Canada, that's right.
Yep. Yeah, but there's a couple of people and we're working on it.
It wasn't Berlin, it was Dusseldorf.
Dusseldorf.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Germany, not Berlin. Yeah.
Which, yeah. Anyway, that would be super fun.
Yeah, it's next spring, I think, like March or April. I'd have to look, but we'll
we could go for a delayed birthday trip.
We could. We'll have to talk about it.
Yeah. Maybe we'll podcast from Europe, and that'll be a Patreon only.
That would be so amazing.
Anyway, thoughts. Cogs.
We're having thoughts.
They're working. They're moving parts. Okay, so
tell me about your wine.
The wine that I brought today is 19 Crimes, and it was $8.99. They have a Syrah. They have a couple blends. They've got the cab that I brought. They've got
19 Crimes.
19 Crimes.
It's got a mugshot on the front.
So here's what's interesting, and I've always seen them. The glass bottle looks
it's like cloudy green.
It's brushed, or it's not polished, so it looks older. Like it's got an older feel to it, kind of that you would see maybe
like an older patina.
And the front is like the label, the paper has a little bit of texture to it. It's
it looks like something that you would get out of a saloon in the mid to late 1800s.
And that's kind of the point, because 19 Crimes, now this wine has turned criminals into colonists. Upon conviction, British rogues guilty of a list of one of 19 crimes were sentenced to live in Australia rather than death.
Right, because Australia is filled with felons.
Well,
apparently.
I mean, but and I'm going to go through the list and you're going to roll your eyes a bunch.
Oh, really?
It's like hey, you can't tie your alligator up to that hitching post is illegal in places like Florida. Right?
What are you doing with a pet alligator?
Or maybe it's not an alligator, maybe it's another animal. But there's like ridiculous laws in every state that are just eye roll worthy.
Yeah.
So this started happening. This quote unquote transportation started in 1783, and a lot of the people who were convicted of one of these 19 things ended up dying at sea. A lot of the people who made it to shore ended up, it was this like frontier, not Wild West, but kind of Wild West sort of lawless whatnot, ended up, sort of building the society that Australia is today. Well, so here's the list. Are you ready for the list?
I'm ready.
There's 19 of them. Grand larceny, theft above the value of 1 shilling. Number 2, petty larceny, theft under 1 shilling. The thing you stole was less than 1 shilling. It's considered petty larceny.
And you're getting kicked out of the country and shipped to Australia.
More than halfway around the world.
Wow.
Buying or receiving stolen goods, jewels, and plate. Stealing lead, iron, or copper, or buying or receiving. You bought something stolen, you sold something stolen, you stole a thing, right? Like all the parties are included.
All the thefts.
Here's number 5. And this is the thing that to me is like, that's the thing. Impersonating an Egyptian.
What?
Yeah, that's number 5 on the list of the 19 things you can get kicked out of the UK for, sent to Australia rather than death. Impersonating an Egyptian. Or stealing from furnished lodgings. Setting fire to underwood. stealing letters, advancing the postage, or secreting the money. Assault with an intent to rob. Stealing fish from a pond or river. Stealing roots, trees, plants, or destroying them. Number 12, bigamy.
Wait. Okay.
Number 13, assaulting, cutting, or burning clothes. Number 14,
assaulting clothes.
I'm just going to assault that scarf. It just upsets my delicate constitution.
Okay.
Counterfeiting the copper coin. Number 15, clandestine marriage.
So going and getting married in secret is against the law.
Apparently.
Okay.
Stealing a shroud out of a grace.
What?
I don't know.
Okay.
Watermen carrying too many passengers on the Thames, if any, drown. So you're ferrying people across the river in London.
And your boat capsizes.
And you have one too many people in that elevator.
Okay.
Incorrigible rogues who broke out of prison and persons reprieved from capital punishment was number 18. And number 19, embezzling naval stores in certain cases.
That is amazing to me. That is amazing to me.
This wine company, this producer, has these 19 crimes, and each of, I wanted to show you, the corks has
a different crime.
Has a different crime on it. I think that, I don't know what that one says.
I'm going to take a picture of it. We'll post it up.
So there are 19 corks, one of each for the 19 crimes a person could commit to be sentenced to punishable by transportation. The corks, which are randomly distributed to the bottles, have the names of the crimes on the side. So there's 19 different corks in any random amount of bottles. I think we got number 3. Buying, receiving stolen goods, jewels, and plate. I'm fencing that. I'm fencing Mama's China.
Wow.
Fencing Mama's China.
That is amazing.
I really wanted impersonating an Egyptian. Or assaulting clothing. I hate your shoes. Whack.
How dare we?
Stomp on them with my cane.
Oh my God. Could you imagine just like walking through Pike Market and assaulting people's clothing?
Your fanny pack is upsetting to my eyes.
I'm going to just mark it with a marker.
No. No capes. So the other cool thing about these labels, and this was something that I thought was interesting from a marketing standpoint, is that you can download the Living Wine Labels app and then point your phone at the label and he'll tell you what he got convicted of.
No shit, really?
Yeah. So there's I've linked on the Patreon notes to their website, and you can download it for Apple or Google. And
that's so funny. That's so interesting.
Yeah. So here's the direct text. Hear the historical stories direct from the infamous. Download the Living Wine Labels app, then point your phone and watch. It's as easy as impersonating an Egyptian and getting sentenced to deportation in Australia in 1806.
Bravo.
Yeah.
This is probably the most interesting bottle of wine, like label-wise, that we have come across.
And the more that I looked at it, the more I was like, oh, they did the glass a certain way. Oh, the texture of the bottle. Oh, it's maybe a thinner cab style with, it's not quite as thick as yours, right? So it has that like...
It doesn't have the big shoulders
old-timey feeling to it. And like the print is interesting. And a lot of marketing went into...
A lot of thought went into this, for sure. Yeah.
It just to me was like, well, yeah, it's $8.99, but I'm not expecting much because it's an $8.99 cab from Australia, but it's actually not terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And you know what? It's going to be great with dinner. Yeah,
so I thought it was just maybe an interesting, like...
19 crimes. First of all, I would totally recommend this for anybody looking to pick up an interesting bottle if you're going to a party, because that is a talking point. You want to get geeky about wine? Now you have a bottle that you can talk about for 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know? Like Casual Wine Geeks 101. You can find an interesting bottle.
I mean, it really to me was like one of those like, oh, I've seen these all over the place because they're just in grocery stores.
Yeah.
But, like.
It's pretty good.
I'll go out on a limb for something other than $10, and it's you know, I would say it doesn't taste like a cheap cab from California.
No, absolutely not.
Does that make sense? Like there is, in my opinion, a difference in texture and quality and flavor and finish. And does it taste kind of cheap? Yeah.
It tastes inexpensive, but it doesn't taste incomplete or
I would
unbalanced.
buy this at a gas station.
Oh yeah, this is definitely a gas station wine for sure.
Are you desperate? Are you in a gas station? Do you have gas station desperation-itis?
Which we did an episode on.
Yeah, you should listen to it. Yeah, so that's kind of like what I got for this thing. It was an interesting concept, and I think a good way to tie in another level of experience where you're taking it out of just the liquid inside the bottle.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're telling a little bit of history about Australia with, the vessel.
Mm-hmm. And it's sort of, I feel like, dispelling the myth of like, well, yes, you stole something more than a shilling, but that thing could have been a loaf of bread. Right. So when we say, oh, all the convicts got shipped to Australia, it's kind of a misnomer that
it's a
we've
wink and a
been
nudge.
fed.
Yeah.
The law says it's a convict. Well, that must mean they're a terrible person. I mean, we've all seen Les Mis. No, he's not a terrible person. He just wanted that loaf of bread for his family.
And if you haven't seen Les Mis, you should.
I mean, the movie was terrible, but the stage show, the book is also terrible.
The stage show is pretty
Victor
awesome.
Hugo, I'm sorry, but you're not a good writer.
I cried when I saw it in person.
The movie?
No.
Oh, good.
No, the theater production
okay.
and the whole the stage moving,
that revolving, and we will hear the people sing and all the things.
I just cried, but you know what? I could cry if my kitten looks at me wrong.
I'm just so happy.
Oh my God, you're so cute. I just want to eat you.
Cute, definitely cute. So I've also got a map on the notes that we'll link for all the Australia wine regions. If you can find some stuff to just get yourself some Australian wine.
Yeah, check it out.
I think it's really tasty, and try and explore outside of just Shiraz, which there is good stuff, but there are other things to drink. Not
the over-extracted fruity bullshit.
I'm never going to live that down.
It's the most amazing thing I've ever heard out of your mouth.
Over-extracted fruity bullshit. Bullshit. The end.
It's beautiful. Awesome. I love it. This wine is interesting, and I would buy 19 Crimes just for the conversation factor.
Well, and so when I was at the grocery store, I was talking to one of the wine stewards, and I was like, "Oh, you guys change stuff around.
Yeah.
It's all varietal, not by country anymore." So
which drives me crazy.
Drives me up a wall.
Do it by country, like a normal civilized human being.
Well, it used to be, and then isn't, and it is what it is. You just have to adapt or die. And
I refuse.
Well, that's why you have to ask for help sometimes. I'm learning in therapy.
There's a lot of stores that are doing that, and I've noticed very recently they're moving their wine how it's always been by location.
Yeah.
Right? Here's the Italian wine section, the French wine section, the Australian wine section, the Spanish wine section. Now it's all jumbled up by here's your Cab Sauves, here's your Pinots, here's your Chardonnays. And it drives me nuts. It drives me nuts.
It's definitely frustrating. And so when I was talking to her about it, I was like, well, I grabbed this thing and, I'm looking for something else that's not Syrah. Do you have a this or do you have a that? And she's like, no, sorry. And I was like, well, I feel like because this is 17 and it's Cab and it's $8.99, it's going to be sweet and it's going to be boozy. And she was like, well, no, it's only 13.5%. I'm like,
oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even look at the percentage on mine. Yeah, well.
And so we were looking at the Syrah and the dark red blend and the regular red blend, and they're all 13 to 13.5%, which to me is an acceptable red wine ABV. Yeah. It's just one of those, I just don't want something that's like 14.5, 15%, because then it's sweet and boozy, and I'm not interested.
Mine's 15%.
Doesn't taste like it.
It doesn't taste like it. But hey, girl.
But when 15%. I see stuff that's like second to bottom shelf, less than $10,
not as
using
boozy.
My context clues, I'm gonna think you're probably gonna be sweet, and it's a 17.
Yeah.
You're gonna be quick produced. You're not gonna be. There's no time spent on you.
Yeah. But this is pretty good.
It's really tasty. I really dig it.
I like it.
Live yourself some 19 Crimes. assault those clothes,
Live yourself
counterfeit the
some
copper coin,
19 crimes. Oh God. I want to put
carry
that
too many
as-
people across the Thames.
I want to put that as the name of this episode.
What?
Live yourself some 19 crimes.
Hey, do it.
Okay.
I'm into it. I mean, at the end of the Chile episode, I came up with where in the world is Carmenere Santiago, which I thought was pretty brilliant.
It was so brilliant.
I thought was pretty hilarious.
Oh my God. It was, and it was such an inspirational moment to me.
You can't force it sometimes. You just have to let it happen.
Oh God.
Anyway, that's all I've got.
Yeah.
Some facts, some stories, some interesting historical bits, crimes, corks, marketing, boozy seltzer water.
And no louse.
Are we louseless in New South Wales? I don't know. That was terrible. Cut it. Cork it.
Cork
Cork
it.
it.
Well, cheers. Happy Casual Wine Geek Wednesday.
Hey, thanks for supporting us. Thanks for listening.
We love you.
We do read the emails.
Yeah. We're just terrible at responding.
It's true.
And if you ordered stuff, it's on its way.
We're endeavoring to be better.
I'm just terrible about going to the post office.
It's not close to you.
And I have anxiety about going to the post because I go and pick up the mail. And every time I pick up the mail, there's nothing fun. It's always bills. So I just don't go. And if I don't go.
Oh, no, we got a fun thing today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We got a fun thing today. Thanks for the fun thing today. Oh, I've had it for a little bit. I forgot to give it to you.
I got a fun thing today.
Yeah. I feel like if I don't pick up the mail, then I don't have to deal with life. So I promise things are coming.
I know that it sounds like that's a rational thing, but having... Hey, listen.
Having new life skills.
I just started going to therapy, and I'm trying to be open and honest about going to therapy, trying to get my mental house in order, and I'm finding out that life tactic
doesn't work out,
and you'll pay for it 15 years later.
Yeah. I'm going to therapy too, but I'm working on it.
Well, I'm just saying, like, ignoring problems does not mean the problems go away.
No, but it makes me feel like I have control over them if I can choose to not pick up my mail.
I mean, that's fair, but...
It's a coping mechanism.
I know.
I see it.
I'm just saying.
It's fine. And on that note, your stuff is coming. I'm going to conquer my fear of the post. We love you. Thank you for listening.
Always take 2 bottles.
Bye.
Ciao.